Hi, welcome to the first of Algebra Armageddon. Algebra number 1 is what we're going to refer this short video to. And today's the 19th of Jan. You can come along and look at this video anytime you like, but it's the real starting point that I want to introduce that horrible thing called algebra that we all learned when we were younger and never really understood. So, main thing is, where and why did we invent algebra? The idea is when we're dealing with unknowns, which we deal with a lot in science, we're doing research and things. When we don't know what something is, we give it a letter. It's typically X, Y, Z. It can also be A, B, C. It can be any letter, but we're trying to choose letters which are not similar to looking to numbers, for example. We then go on in the whole rest of algebra, which I'm not going to get into today, because I just want you to focus on this in a minute here. But we go on to form expressions with letters and numbers, and also to solve equations where we actually get letters equal to numbers. And that's the two main things that we do with them. But for today, just to keep this short, I want to focus in on two critical things. First of all, how to actually process algebra in your head. Because the idea of maths and English mixed together is just illogical to a lot of students. So, first of all, we give letters to the unknowns, as we've already mentioned. But then what we do is I want you to translate it to an object that you know begins with the letter A. So, apple, for example. And then to read it back to yourself with that word. So, apple plus apple equals 2 apples, okay? That makes tautological sense, right? And if you remember that, if you remember the easy bit, the harder bit doesn't make as much sense, okay? So, if we come to this one, for example, we do apple, if we change the operator and we do apple multiplied by apple, we get apple squared, right? Now, that kind of doesn't really make as much sense. So, this is how you remember the differences between the two. Remember the easy stuff, and remember that the harder thing that doesn't really make a lot of sense involves the power 2 is squared, okay? And if you remember those concepts, all we do then after this in algebra is collect like terms together. Apples can be put together with other apples and taken away from other apples, and apples squared, okay, is actually going to be something different. I'm going to get you to imagine it in 2 dimensions. So this is going to be your apple squared. It's not the same as a normal apple, okay? Not the same at all. What this is actually in 2 dimensions. So it actually physically looks like a square when we write apple in the middle of it, okay? If we have apple times apple times apple, we would get apple cubed. And if we had to draw it out, you could imagine it was an apple in a box, okay? So I did promise you on the other videos that I just started up that I would do everything with visual learning, so you could actually imagine what it looks like in your head. And this is also going to help those of you that want to understand science better, because some of the biggest challenges we have, for example, in things like chemistry, is we can't see things, so we have to picture them a lot. We have to bring them out and make them alive, make them come alive. Okay. And the other thing as well is maths requires us to see beyond one-dimensional things. So. One-dimensional things here, 2-dimensional things there, and 3-dimensional things here. And some of the hardest things in maths is when we go beyond 1 dimension. When we look at 2 and 3 dimensions, things start to create chaos in our brains. So hopefully that gives you a nice little introduction of how I'm going to tutor you to do algebra. So the follow-up lesson to this is going to be called Algebra 2, and might work on it tomorrow at some point, and post it up. And just please subscribe to my channel.